You can join us live for our next BookFunnel webinar. Check out the link in the description for more details. We hope to see you there.
Today's topic, the 5 reader magnets that every author needs. A bit of an audacious title, I will admit. I'm not trying to clickbait you. There's actually 5 different reader magnets in here that I do think you need. And we're going to talk about each of them and what their purpose is and how you can use them. And it's going to be a little bit kind of outside the box. For those of you who are maybe new to self-publishing, this is some stuff that you can maybe aspire to. For the veterans who have been around for a while, hopefully there's some new ideas in here that can maybe give you a fresh perspective on how you can use reader magnets in order to grow your audience and more. Right. So we're going to be talking about how we can do that. It's going to have to be a little bit of a reframing in the way that you've maybe understood reader magnets in the past. For a lot of authors, a reader magnet is a box they have to check off, right, on their list of things they have to do to self-publish their book, right? If you're publishing your first book, right, that's definitely one of the check boxes you need to check off. This is kind of expanding on that idea to meet some other goals other than just growing an audience, right? So what we're going to cover today, again, I'm going to address the initial objective, or the initial, objection, rather. Isn't one magnet enough? Why do I need more than one reader magnet? What's the deal? We'll talk about that. I'll try to convince you and sway you to my side. And then we'll talk about having a content first strategy and what that means before we then dive into these 5 different magnets that I'm going to talk about here, right? And I should preface, to kind of set some expectations, those 5 different reader magnets are arranged by their purpose and what your goal and outcome is. And so we'll get into some specific, like some things like, is it a prequel, or is it like a short story that's related? Like, talking about that from a storytelling perspective, right, is a little different. When I'm talking about 5 different reader magnets, I'm talking about you have a different goal. You're using this reader magnet for one goal, and this reader magnet here has a different goal, regardless of what type of story it is, right? And of course, for those of you who write nonfiction, I don't want to leave you guys out. You guys, of course, can still benefit from this kind of thinking. Maybe you have to do a little bit more outside the box thinking, which you guys are typically used to doing in nonfiction, on what those reader magnets would look like. Then I have some final thoughts to kind of wrap things up, and then we'll go into the Q&A from there. So isn't one reader magnet enough, right? I wrote my reader magnet. It works pretty well. It does its job. Why do I need another one, Jack? Why are you telling me that one is not enough? Well, yes, one reader magnet can be enough. A well-written reader magnet can help you grow your mailing list and build an audience. There's nothing wrong with that. And some people are going to be successful with just one reader magnet, or happy with just one reader magnet, and it's totally fine. Right. If you have one reader magnet right now and you're in a good spot and nothing needs to change, then maybe this is just kind of an interesting presentation. You're like, oh, that's really neat. Apply whatever makes sense for you to apply here. Although I know I did use the word need in the title, that you need these. But I'm going to connect that to some of your common goals that you have as an author anyway. So when I say need, we're using reader magnets to fulfill the needs that you have as an author. So there's a lot of missed opportunities, though, to use reader magnets, or let's substitute in free content, free books, free stories, in different ways and for different purposes. So a bigger audience, mailing list, right, isn't necessarily the goal here all the time, but leveraging that audience more effectively is our goal oftentimes. So we want to kind of take a step back and see beyond just having a big mailing list, right? If I have 5,000 people on my mailing list, well, that's great. What else do I need, though? And how could I use a reader magnet or a free book, essentially? Because I know some people get hung up on the definition of a reader magnet, right? Right? A free book to help me reach that goal, right? So this is where I want to talk about having a content first strategy. And what I mean by that, I'll explain, right? You have to ask yourself, what do readers want? They want a satisfying story from their favorite author, which is you, right? And the more content you have to offer, the better, provided that content is of high quality, right? So it's the content that they want, right? Have you ever gone into a bookstore and seen fishing bait on the counter at the checkout? That would be very out of place, right? Readers are coming to you for content first and foremost. Now, that doesn't mean you can't sell coffee mugs, right? I'm not trying to tell you that you can't do something else, right? Just that it should be an afterthought. Content is what they want. That's what they're coming to you for. Right? I don't know. Maybe if you had a bookstore in a fishing town, right, with some good fishing spots in the area, who knows? Maybe, I don't know. That's kind of beside the point. They're coming to you for content. And having more content is going to make sense. Using a content first strategy where every marketing strategy you're implementing leads off with its own piece of content. It works because it's going to align with your goals and the reader's desire. You want a bigger list and they want a good book, right? Those two things align. You give them the free book, they join your list, right? Those two things align. But what else do you want beyond just a bigger mailing list, right? You want to think about how else you can use free content, in this case, reader magnets, to motivate readers besides just getting them on your mailing list. What other hoops are readers willing to jump through in order to get a free book, right? Think of it that way, right? We have them jump through the hoop of joining our mailing list, giving us their email, sometimes their first name and their last name, their personal details, right? Something that at one point in time, and early on in the internet era, might have been unconscionable. I don't know. I don't know whether people have become more or less cautious about sharing their personal information, but I trust you all are taking care of it wisely when they give that information to you. But still, they're giving you their personal information, their email, a way to contact them in exchange for a free book, right? What else can you get them to do in order to get a free book? So here's where we come to those 5 reader magnets. And this first one, magnet number 1, are free samples. Now, don't be underwhelmed here, because you might be thinking, free sample, okay. Is this the clickbait portion of the presentation, right? Did we all get tricked? Okay, hold on a minute. A lot of people disregard free samples as a reader magnet. Free samples work if you play your cards right. Pick a few compelling chapters from your book, not even necessarily the first few chapters, that will demonstrate your book's promise to readers. I recommend you have no strings attached when you give away a free sample. A sample is most effective when it's given away freely, meaning there's no required email sign up. They're not giving you their email address, and it's clearly labeled as a sample. They know what they're getting, and you're not attaching any strings to it. You're just giving it away. I find that's most effective when we're talking about free samples. And you're playing the long game here. Readers will sometimes download a whole bunch of free samples, right? Sometimes from group promos and things like that. And they'll have them on their Kindle or on their device. And they might have a whole bunch of them. And they might not get around to them all right away. But eventually there's going to come a time where they ran out of stuff to read. And they're like, okay, let me go look through the samples that I have, see if there's anything interesting in there. And they're going to stumble upon your book and they're going to check it out. And who knows, maybe it's a few months later, 6 months, 2 years, right? Whatever it happens to be, but it's going to be there. And they might not get around to it right away, but you shouldn't be giving away your sample away to just one reader anyway, right? We want to give away our sample to everyone. So if you gave your free sample away to 10 people, whoop-de-doo, right? Those 10 people, that's a drop in the bucket. But if 10,000 people over a period of time got your free sample, think about the long tail and how that's going to impact your sales later on down the road when they eventually do read it. Now, what's our goal here with the free sample? I think we need to establish that, right? We want to get our sample to as many readers as possible when we're talking about a free sample. That should be your goal, right? How do we know that our free sample is working? Right? How will we know that this reader magnet is working for us? Well, we need to track long tail conversion with dedicated front and back matter links in that sample. So the sample, they get that for free. Absolutely. But then within that sample, we can include links for them to join our mailing list, or even just a link to go purchase book one, whatever it happens to be. If you like the sample, you can go buy it here, or whatever it happens to be. Whatever it is you're trying to get that sample to convert to, right? And we want to make sure we're tracking that over time so we can start to see, okay, I gave away like 100 copies of my free sample about 6 months ago, and about like 30% of those now have converted, right? Just as an example, right? Or 30% of those resulted in clicks on those links in the front or back matter of my free sample, right? So an advanced application as well, for those of you who really want to think outside the box, is that you can A/B test different samples in order to determine which is the most compelling and converts the best, right? There's no real rule that says you can't give away, or that the sample has to be the first 3 chapters of your book. You can give away a sample chapter from a different part of the book. You can give away multiple different samples if you do it carefully. You got to be careful. You can't be too confusing, right? But you can test them. Give away the sample of the first few chapters at one point in time. Do that for a while, and then change it up and give away a different sample. Maybe that's around like your first plot point in the book, or when the twist happens. Something, again, that's going to show them that your book has promise. It doesn't have to be the beginning of the book, right? For those of you who happen to be on social media, right? If you're on most social media platforms these days, you'll see like short form video content is very popular on like YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, right? That sort of thing. And there are creators, and some of this is, well, in the early days of this kind of content, well, they would take clips from TV shows and upload them as short little videos to their channel. Now, these platforms have caught on to this. They're kind of using someone else's content to get views, really kind of unethical, right? But they wind up like dropping you in the middle of an episode of a TV show that you've never seen before. And they're actually quite catchy, is what's happened. In fact, you might even notice, if you see some of those little clips from TV shows, that these production companies, or the producers of these TV shows, have caught on and have started to do the same exact thing. They're putting those little snippets out there on social media in order to get people hooked. In fact, I know there's several TV shows that my wife and I have watched simply because we saw that short little video of that show on YouTube or something like that, right? And so the same sort of thing applies here. Give away little snippets here or there where you can, and track them to see which one's converting. You might find that there's a particular chapter of your book or a particular part of your book that just converts really well. And maybe that is a better sample than just giving away the first few chapters, right? You want to get people excited to read your book. And so the first few chapters aren't always the best fit for that. All right, so now reader magnet number 2, a short prequel. Right, this is going to be, or I guess another way to put it is just the typical run-of-the-mill reader magnet, right? And this is what most people consider a reader magnet to be. It's tried and true, right? You write a good short story or novella, 10 to 20,000 words, somewhere in that ballpark, that relies on the same tropes as your series and leads into book 1. This is very effective. This is probably the most effective reader magnets out there follow this sort of scheme, but this is a typical reader magnet. So yes, you do need one of these, right? I don't think I have to do a whole lot of convincing though for most of you on this one, right? But it is one that you need. And the primary goal for this would be, of course, to grow your list, but we want to get them hooked as well. So this is serving a similar purpose to our sample, right? We want to tell a compelling story here. That's crucial. And we need readers to connect with our characters if you want them to continue past the prequel. In fact, we were actually talking about this briefly yesterday when we were recording the BookFunnel podcast with Mallory Cooper. That will be dropping on the YouTube channel later this week. We were talking about reader magnets, and the topic that came up was that you want the reader to essentially, I'm going to have to paraphrase the the exact wording here, right? But you want them to be offended on behalf of your characters about what they're going through, or compelled uh, based on what you're putting your characters through, what they're experiencing, to go and read the book. You want to get them hooked that way so that they want to continue on. But of course, that short prequel, that reader magnet, should still be satisfying in and of itself. Right? You don't want to be stingy. You want to go all out on your prequel. I've said this before, as this is going to be your primary reader magnet to grow your list. You're going to pull out all the stops. So on editing, formatting, cover design, this is stuff that has been repeated many times by many people, not just myself. You need to make a good first impression. So what's your goal with your short prequel, right? Your primary reader magnet. The goal here is to grow our list and get readers to buy book one, right? Those are the two things that we want to accomplish, right? So how do we know that this is actually working though? Right? So how do we know that our primary reader magnet is working? Well, we want to track our list growth and retention after they go through our automation sequence. An automation sequence is essential for this type of reader magnet. You are collecting their emails in order to get the book. They need to go through an automation sequence that gets them to read that reader magnet, and then ultimately holds their hand along the way to then go and buy book one or start getting into your series, right? We want to be able to track how our list is growing, but also how many people drop off in the middle of that automation sequence, right? Versus how many people stick around. There's ways you can track that in your mailing list. Right. There's a number of simple ways to do it. Once they've gone through the automation sequence, you can move them to a new group or something like that. There's lots of ways that you can do that so that you can kind of get an idea for, okay, if I have 100 readers come through this funnel and they download the prequel, what's coming out on the other end? Am I getting 70 of those readers to stick around and stay on my list, and then I can continue to sell to them? Okay, that's probably pretty good. That's pretty successful, right? Is what I would say. Somewhere around there too. There's a ballpark, right, where that works, right? Where those numbers make sense. We also want to track clicks in the front and back matter. That's also going to tell us that it's working. So you should have some links in the front and or back matter of your prequel. That being, things like going to book one in your series is probably where you want to send them. Most likely is what I would imagine. There might be somewhere else you want them to go. And we want to track those clicks. We want to know, okay, how, if again, out of 100 readers who have downloaded the book in this time frame or in this specific window of time, how many clicks am I getting in that window of time? So I kind of get an idea for what, how much traffic am I sending through that reader magnet. Right? They're on your list, of course, but we do want to see that activity in the front and back matter of your reader magnet. Now, some advanced applications here would be experimenting with different calls to action in your front or back matter. So, for example, if you have an omnibus, right? Let's say you have a trilogy, right? Let's keep it simple. You have your reader magnet, and you may want to test having one version of your reader magnet that points them just to book one. And if you have an omnibus that's all three books, you might want to have a different version of your reader magnet that points them to the omnibus and see how that converts. Maybe you get a lower overall conversion with the omnibus, but it makes up for it with the sales, right? The amount of money that you get from that omnibus. Maybe the conversion makes sense though on book one because it's just an easy sell. Maybe your book one's 99 cents or something. So it's really easy to get them initiated, right? You can track that sort of thing there. Now, again, it's advanced, and that's why it's under the advanced list. Having different versions of your reader magnet can be tricky, but it's really here. I'm talking about the front and back matter links that would be different. The content itself would be the same. So number 3, and here's where we're going to kind of wrap things up with the ones that you're probably familiar with. Although I suspect that not everybody has done this yet. So a lot of people have probably done the first two, a free sample and a prequel or a dedicated reader magnet. Now here we're going to be talking about bonus chapters. And this is something that authors are aware of, but I don't think a lot of authors have necessarily done. So it's all about the data when it comes to bonus chapters, right? It's fun just to have a bonus chapter there for your readers, and that's great. But the real benefit of this is the data that you get on read through. In other words, how many people are going to read through your entire series? Again, let's say we've got a trilogy here, right? Where is the cliff? If I have a bonus chapter for book 1, 2, and 3, do I get lots of downloads for book 1's bonus chapter, but then it falls off, right? There's probably a problem with book 1. Now, you can get read-through data in other ways too, but this will help kind of add to that data and give you a feel for how many people are reading through and getting to the end and then like, yes, I want the bonus chapter, give me more. And if you do this over the course of a series, again, if it's 3, 4, 5 books, or like myself, 9, because I'm crazy, right? However many books it is, you get more data points where you can see, okay, everything's going really well until we get to book 3, and then just it falls off, right? And then requiring an email submission, I'm going to strongly suggest that you do this, because in order to get that data, you need to somehow, somewhere store it. So I highly recommend that when you're giving away a bonus chapter, that it collects their email address. There's a couple ways you can do this. You can use a BookFunnel email collection page. That's totally fine. If you really want to keep all this data on your mailing list service, I would just have a separate list for each bonus chapter. And when they sign up, they get added to that list. And then it's really easy in your mailing list service to just see, oh, they're on this list and that list, and or this list for all these bonus chapters. And that makes it really easy to manage there in your mailing list service. If you don't want to have that data there, you can still collect those emails through that page using like for example, a non-sign-up page, right? We have email collection pages that will allow you to collect the email, but you're not requiring them to consent to join your list. That way you can download a CSV and you can look at the raw data. Might not be quite as helpful, but in all honesty, or if you want to use restricted landing pages, which will require them to already be on a list, you can do that too. There's a benefit there that there's some retention. They're staying on your list in order to get those bonus chapters. And you can also look at the CSV to see who claimed it. But really, the big disadvantage of those last two options is that that data doesn't automatically, or the data doesn't easily get added to your mailing list service, where you can really put it to work, and you can maybe have automation sequences set to run based on how many of those bonus chapters somebody has downloaded. Maybe when they download the bonus chapter for book 3, that initiates an automation that tells them, hey, here's a teaser for book 4, right? And you can snowball things that way. So what's the goal of a bonus chapter, right? What's our goal here? Well, we want to get data on read through for our series primarily, right? That's what we're wanting to do when we have a bonus chapter. We're providing some content for our readers, and that's great, but we really want to see that read through. That's the reason why you would do this for each book in your series. Now, how do we know it's working? We're going to track total claims and downloads for each bonus chapter. Your BookFunnel landing pages will give you this data so that you can see the raw data there, right? if 100 people have bought book one, right? How many downloads of the bonus chapter have you gotten? You can compare that way. And then require email submission for all of them. For each, I should clarify this here because I wrote this kind of funky. Require email submission for each bonus chapter separately. So when they claim the bonus chapter for book one, they're going on to a list specifically for that. And then when they claim the bonus chapter for book two, they're claiming the list, or they're joining a list specifically for that bonus chapter. And that way you can sort all that data, right? That can be a lot, right? That's a lot there's a bit of setup involved for sure, but it pays dividends in the long run. So some advanced applications here would be to restrict access to bonus chapters to front back matter only, i.e., don't make them available anywhere else. Don't make them freely accessible. Some authors will do this and make bonus chapters, like they'll have a landing page where anybody can go and find them and they give them away freely. That's fine. But if you do that, you don't get the benefit of this kind of data. So they make it so they have to buy the book, right, in order to get that link. I wouldn't necessarily restrict it to the back matter of the book. Sometimes putting it in the front makes sense. They'll download it when they start reading the book. So maybe the bonus chapter for book 3 is more of an indication that they came to book 3 from book 2, whatever it happens to be, right? But you can restrict access to it there so that they have to actually purchase the book in order to get access to the bonus chapter. In addition to that, I ran out of room there, obviously. You could also restrict, now that I'm thinking about it, you could restrict that book to the BookFunnel app or cloud library so they cannot download the file. And therefore, there's not going to be any sharing because your fans are going to be like, hey, does anybody have the bonus chapter for book 3? Can somebody send it to me? Right? Fans will share files with each other sometimes. I wouldn't be too worried about it, right? In all honesty. But if you really want to make it exclusive, I would also restrict the book in that way so that it's just on the BookFunnel app or the BookFunnel cloud reader. If you want to, you have the option there. We would never force you to do that, obviously, but that's an option. Okay. Now, reader magnet number 4. And this is perhaps my favorite one. Maybe I should have made it number 5, but this is my favorite one. Is what I'm going to call a feedback magnet. So you need reviewers. You're an author, right? You need people to review your book. So why not craft a magnet specifically for them? Here's how that would work. I want you to think about this, right? Let's go back to some of that reader behavior we talked about earlier. What do readers want? Really good books from you. And what are they willing to do in order to get that free book? Well, in this case, claiming the feedback magnet is the act of joining your team. They're going to join your ARC team or review team or whatever it happens to be. Probably not an ARC team in this case. Review team, street team, whatever you want to call it. There's an explicit, hey, to download this book, you're joining the team. I'm going to harass you in your email inbox for a few weeks to make sure you review this book, right? Tell them ahead of time what they're signing up for. Make all that very clear. And then to stay on the team, they need to follow through and then review that reader magnet. This then allows you to sort and filter them. So did a reader leave a 1-star review? Well, that's no big deal. You can just boot them from the team because clearly they're not your target audience. Did they not follow through on their review? Well, no worries. It was only a free book. Same thing for the 1-star review. This book is something that they could only get by joining your team. And while it's adjacent to your series, it's not a book that's directly in your series. It should follow all the rules of a normal reader magnet. It should use the same tropes as your story does. It should the same themes. It should focus on the main characters, right? It shouldn't be something way out of left field, probably. It should be related so that if they really do like it, you can move them onto the series and usher them through to then leave reviews for the other books in the series, right? But our goal here with this is to find those readers who are going to follow through and actually write reviews. And so instead of, now it depends on the position that you're in as an author. If you've got your series out there, instead of giving away, because you'll run into this problem, right? Especially if you have a longer series, right? You might run into this problem. You're releasing book 5 and you need people to review it. But the problem is that it's book 5. And there are people out there who would love a free book and would be willing to review it, but it's the 5th book in your series. They haven't even gotten started or initiated yet. You need people to start from the beginning and go through sort of a review funnel to make it through your series. And yes, you can, of course, give away like book 1 as a review copy to readers. That is something that you can do even after your book has been published, right? You can do it selectively, right? And carefully, right? But it would be ideal if you had a way to funnel people and kind of get them initiated in that whole process, right? So we want to build that team, and the best way to do that, hey, let's give them a book and see if they follow through. And if they do, they get to stay on the team. We're sorting them, right? Through the process of delivering that reader magnet. So how do we know it's working? Well, we want to track the readers who write reviews for the magnet. There's a number of ways that you can do this. You can do it the old-fashioned way, keep a spreadsheet, that sort of thing. There are ways to do this where you use sort of like an email sign-up form through your mailing list service, where they can actually submit the link, and that can move them through an automation sequence. It's a little complicated, but it can be done, right? There's other services out there that can do some things like that, where you can manage your teams in that respect. So whatever tools you want to use, but you want to track who writes reviews for the magnet. You're giving that review magnet away freely. And again, it comes with it with an explicit, they're agreeing to review the book, and you're going to see who follows up with that. And then you can push them on to the next books that you want them to write reviews for. Again, we want to track clicks in the front matter and back matter and so forth. The links that they're clicking on might be different though, right? Instead, we want to see, okay, who's clicking the link to go write a review on Amazon, or who's clicking the link to go write a review on Goodreads, or submit the review directly to me, whatever it happens to be, right? Or maybe we have a link that says, hey, yes, where they can express interest in reviewing the next book, right? Something like that, the next book in the series. Now, an advanced application here, and I want to state this very carefully, because I don't want what I'm about to say to be misconstrued. So Amazon does not allow you to give readers a book in exchange for a review, or even a really good review. But this book doesn't have to be on Amazon. So what that means is that, because Amazon does not like the idea of you, rewarding people for leaving 5-star reviews with another book. I'm not suggesting you do that, but that's kind of what Amazon is looking to curb. But what I am suggesting you can do, right, is keep this book off of Amazon, something akin to, well, here's the first review magnet, and go ahead and review that one. And then I might not tell you this ahead of time, but if you do follow through and leave a review and you seem to like it, maybe you give a 4 or 5-star review. So you're my target audience. I'm going to give you the next book to review, or I'm going to give you a freebie because you followed through and wrote a review. Now, if you're doing that, they can't be writing that review on Amazon. That's the one thing. Keep it on Goodreads, or keep it on your own website, something like that. In fact, it doesn't even matter, if it's publicly, it'll probably wind up on Goodreads. Like, who am I kidding, right? But in general, right, you could do something like that, especially if it's off of Amazon's platform or any other retailer's platform. I wouldn't put it up there, right? But you have a little more flexibility with that sort of thing when it's not on a retailer's platform. When those reviews aren't going to be showing up there, you have a lot more flexibility with that. And again, I'm not suggesting that you communicate that to readers up front, because you want to get genuine feedback from them, right? Saying, if you leave me a 5-star review, you'll get the second bonus book. Don't do that, because they're just going to leave you a 5-star review and move along and get that second book. And that's not the type of reader that you're looking to find, right? So it's not a promise you're going to make up front, But just know that when you're filtering them through, you after the fact, you could easily say, hey, thanks for leaving a review. I really appreciate it. Looks like you enjoyed it. Here's an extra book. Something to that effect. All right, and the fifth one here, I'm going to call this a superfan magnet. That's the term that we're going to use here. Because we talked earlier about, again, the hoops that we think we can get readers to jump through. And so super fans are fans who are going to devour your content. They will do anything to get it. And even more so if it is exclusive, meaning it's hard to get. If you want to, let's say, grow a Patreon, if you've ever thought about doing Patreon, well, one of the best ways to start growing a Patreon is actually to make it free. People can join your Patreon and get a free magnet for being a patron. Let them sign up for free, but you start building those patrons, and then you can then eventually start offering more paid options on your Patreon after you've built it up. Do you want to build a social media platform? Oh, there are ways to do this where you can have people follow you on various social media platforms, and as a reward, there are ways to verify, right, that they are in fact subscribed to your YouTube channel, or they've liked your Facebook page, or whatever it happens to be. And by doing that, they get access to this exclusive freebie, for example. Right? So you can make a piece of content connected to something else you want to build. But even simpler than both of those examples is something like just having a super secret super fan list that they can join. So there's your normal mailing list that everybody can be on, but then there's the super fan list where there's some exclusive content, and they kind of have to opt in again, if you will. And this might sound kind of counterintuitive because we're always told with internet marketing in general, but especially when it comes to ebook marketing, that sort of thing, is we want to reduce the total number of clicks. We want to have the fewest number of clicks possible for them to get to the end result. In this case, it's the opposite. How many clicks can I put in your way? How many steps can I put in your way in order for you to get this free book? Because I want to know how bad you want it, if that makes any sense, right? So we want to play hard to get when we use this strategy. We do not want to make it easy to get our superfan magnet. Make them jump through the extra hoops. I mean, like, be reasonable about it, but yeah, they should maybe jump through a few extra hoops. You want to maybe limit the window of time that they can get it, or maybe the number of copies that are available in some cases. Maybe it's that exclusive. You only give it away for, 4 weeks out of the year, once every quarter, right? And make it scarce so it's hard to get. Another reason, or another case where you may want to use like a restricted book as well. So it's restricted to the BookFunnel app or Cloud Reader. So what's our goal here? It's to identify who our superfans are and leverage their interest. Much like when we were talking about bonus chapters, if somebody has downloaded your reader magnet and they've downloaded all of the bonus chapters in your series, and then they go the extra step and they download your superfan magnet, heck, maybe that could even be how they get it, right? They have to have downloaded all those things, and that triggers an automation that says, hey, you're a super fan, did you know? Right? Here's this extra freebie for you. Right? There's lots of ways that you can approach this. So in that case, the example I just gave there, you're giving them something exclusive, you're making them feel special, and that's focused on retaining them as a reader. Or it could be like the example I listed here, talking about building a Patreon or a social media platform. There's lots of different ways that you can approach it, right? But in general, we want to find out who those super fans are. Who are the people that are really willing to do stuff in order to get our content? And you want to know who these people are and keep a list of them, because those are the people who are going to buy your book immediately when it comes out the first day. Those are the people who are going to pre-order. Those are the people who are going to back your Kickstarter. Those are the people who are going to, they're going to jump through the hoops, right? I'm not trying when I say jump through hoops, right? I'm not trying to be disparaging here at all, right? They want to do those things in order to get your content, right? And it's important to identify those readers and who they are for later on. So how will we know it's working? Well, are they jumping through the hoops that we we put in the way, right? In general, right? It might be a little bit harder to determine here, right? If you're growing a Patreon, right? How many of them are becoming patrons at that free tier that I talked about, or following you on a social media profile, right? It depends on how you are using the superfan magnet a little bit, but in general, you want to see, right? Are they doing those things that I wanted them to do, whatever that is, in order to get this, right? Then yes, it's probably working. Now on the back end, you could probably do some additional tracking and things like that, and track link clicks and so forth. But the superfan magnet is kind of like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, is what you want to think. You want to, right? You want to put that there for some of those readers to find, and you can drop clues along the way, right, on how they can get there, whatever it happens to be. But right, you just kind of, the proof is kind of in the pudding. So some advanced applications here, right? Like I talked about, we want to restrict access in every way possible, meaning, right, we can limit the time, the window that it's available, the number of copies available, again, restricting it to the BookFunnel app and Cloud Reader, any number of things you can think of. And then we want to cross-reference this data with the data that we've collected from our other magnets to kind of get a reader profile. And so then we know, okay, we can cross-reference this reader's behavior with these other readers' behavior, and that helps us kind of identify who our new super fans are going to be. But really, ultimately, just the simple goal here should be to identify who they are, keep that list of super fans so that you can target them specifically when something important is going on, right? When you have a new book that's up for pre-order, when you have you're starting a Kickstarter, whatever it happens to be. Maybe you are launching a paid Patreon and you need those super fans to help get the ball rolling. That's what helps you go to the next level. Another thing, here, just to give another example, talking about Facebook ads. How many of you have seen an author's Facebook ad for their book where there's a bunch of comments from readers that say, I love this book? Now, some of those are legit people who saw the ad, clicked on it, went and bought the book, came back to the ad and wrote a comment. But a lot of those readers were those authors' super fans. And the author was like, hey, I'm running an ad. Here's the link to it. You guys are my super fans. I would love it if you would just leave a comment about how you enjoyed the book or something like that. Kind of akin to like a review in a way, right? It's little things like that. And you guys can probably come up with way more ideas than I've just listed here, right? But super fans are more than happy to do that. They are on your side, right? Right? They are on your team. And so they would be willing to jump through any of those hoops, right? Whatever it happens to be. So some final thoughts. You want to track everything, right? If nothing else, if you're like, I don't know that I need all of those reader magnets. I think one or two are good for me. That's fine. Okay. Whatever you happen to do, track everything. So use dedicated BookFunnel pages to track your claims and downloads. You can use Amazon attribution links and other link tracking software to track clicks in back matter. Amazon attribution will let you track sales somewhat on Amazon as well, right? And I think I mentioned briefly collecting review links through forms so that the data is tied to them on your list. Some people might have some questions about that because there's a way to do it. I can kind of explain how it works. I have this set up myself on MailerLite. And essentially it allows you to kind of automate the whole process. In fact, you could create an entire automated process where they download your feedback magnet, then they submit the review directly to you with the link to it, and then that triggers an automation that says, oh, hey, thanks for writing a review. Here's the link, here's the next book that you can review. that works if you're tracking everything and you keep all that data. There's a lot of power in that. We want to make the content compelling, right? So we're not just pushing out free content just for the sake of free content, right? It should be the same quality or even higher than your paid content, whatever it happens to be. So put some time into it, or put some thought into it rather, and take your time when you're crafting this content, right? Also, you don't need to do it all at once. If you've got one of these 5 reader magnets already, your goal should be to get the second one up and running. And if you already have the second, same thing with the third, right? Rome wasn't built in a day. You don't need to turn around and do all of these right now. Right? Some of them should just kind of become part of your process. Well, first of all, you probably have book 1. So the free sample is easy, right? Everybody should have that one. And you should have written a reader magnet. If not, that's the first one that you should do, is that prequel, right? Or the standard reader magnet to grow your list. You should be writing that one if you haven't already written that one. So those are like the first 2 that you can knock out really easy, right? And then a bonus chapter that should just be part of your process. You're writing book 3, and when you're drafting it, excuse me, when you're drafting book 3, also draft the bonus chapter, right? And then just write it when you write book 3, and then it's ready. It's just part of the process of writing each book that you do. And there's no real extra steps there. And then it's only those last 2 that I mentioned where you're kind of going out of your way to write something else, right? And then if this all seems overwhelming, remember that the content you're creating when you create these reader magnets and the systems that you surround them with are assets that you only have to build once. You write a really good reader magnet once, and you don't necessarily have to write it again if you don't want to, right? If you build them the right way, they will stand the test of time. So, for example, right, the superfan magnet that we talked about. However you're wanting to set that up, maybe your thought is, yeah, I really want my Patreon to be the main part of my business model. That's what I want them to do, right? Okay. Well, if we're going to commit to that, let's set it up the right way the first time, so that we create a system where I've written the book, I have the system all there, there's an automation sequence, it's just integrated into whatever I do, right, with my newsletter on a regular basis. And then you just get to, it's the goose that laid the golden egg, right? You just got to feed the goose, right? That's the idea. So don't look at this and see like all the work that you would have to do and get to, like, break it up into bite-sized pieces. And then also realize that once you've done it, if you do it the right way, it's one and done. And you can then leave that system up and running if you build it the right way, and it will continue to pay dividends for you for life. All right. Oops. So, questions. We're ready to go to Q&A. I have to find, there's Kelly. Kelly and Emma.
A lot of questions, Jack.
Oh, I know.
Chat's popping.
All right. So, yeah, Emma, I see your comment about homework from, I'm giving you all some homework here at the top of the hour. Yes, it is.
And
there's
first question we have, I love, from Mimi. She says Amazon already provides free samples, though it is only the first 10%. Wouldn't a sample be redundant?
No, not necessarily. So, you have control over the free sample that you give them through like BookFunnel or something like that. You have complete control of that. They have to go to Amazon in order to see that, like, look inside sort of thing. So if they're already there, it's useful. but that sample you can push out there everywhere. You can make that sample available all over the place, so they don't have to be on Amazon to read the sample, right? So the idea is that again, if you're, let's say you're putting it into a BookFunnel group promos, I would put your free sample in there, and you have a little bit of flexibility, kind of the way that samples. I'm going to be careful here because Amazon is kind of a gray area when it comes to samples, to be quite honest and frank. A couple things you need to know for starters, right? The rule used to be a 10% sample was allowed. However, some of that language has been removed from Amazon's from the KDP website, so it's become less clear. However, what has always been the case is that sample, that 10% sample, is based on the file size and not your word count. So that, number one, is something you need to know. It needs to be 10% of your file size and not 10% of your word count. Theoretically, you have some flexibility where you could pick different chapters than what appears in the Amazon look inside. I highly doubt that Amazon is going to see your free sample and go and do much more than downloading it, check that the file size is equal to or less than 10%, and then doing anything after that, if they even find your free sample you're giving away anyway. Okay. So for that, right, you have that flexibility where you don't have that on Amazon. So there's that as well. I also see somebody asking about where would you advertise a free sample? Well, I would not advertise it with dollars, right? I would put it in all the easy places to find, put it in group promos, put it in swaps. You can put it in a number of places where it's going to be found and stumbled upon, right? Wherever it happens to be, right? That sort of thing. I mean, if you wanted to do paid advertising to it, you totally could, but you just understand you're more likely to be burning money on that. Free samples, it's like you want to think of it long tail, like how is this going to pay off in the long run? I want to get this out there to as many readers as possible. Maybe something like, again, maybe not an ad per se, but some paid options, right? If there's some paid promo services out there that'd be willing to give away a free sample, right? That's an option that you could use, where I could see like spending a little bit of money could generate a lot of downloads actually, as opposed to like running a Facebook ad. I wouldn't do that. But paying a BookBub type service, probably one of the cheaper ones, obviously, paying them $50 to feature your free sample. Now, not all of them will do samples, but maybe you find one that does, right? Paying them $50 to put your sample out there to their list of 30,000-40,000 readers, that might be worth it, right? So that's an example. But otherwise, promos, BookFunnel group promos, probably a good place to put it. And you can put it into newsletter promos or even sales promos if you have a direct sales store that can deliver it for free, which is something we'll probably talk about in next week's webinar. So there you go. I do want to mention here, because we are at the top of the hour, the whole session, Q&A and everything, is still going to be recorded. So if anybody does have to duck out, if you have to leave at this point in time, the full Q&A will be uploaded to YouTube. A link will be sent out tomorrow, so everybody can check it out. But I'll probably get it up on the channel here this evening or later today. So if you do have to duck out, thank you for coming, and you can check the replay out on YouTube. All right. What else? Kelly, do you got one for me here?
Okay, so you kind of covered where you would put the free sample. So like where, it would be on your retailer site and all of that. I covered that one. So the next one is what kind of cover do you put on a free sample? The book's cover with a free sneak peek kind of banner. They don't want to redo the covers for a free sample.
Yeah. No, that generally I think would be fine. In fact, I think that would probably be best. I don't think it would be potentially confusing to have a different cover or a different cover that's like drastically different from the actual book. But yes, very clearly label it as a sample. Um, Whatever, and however that works. Some readers are going to see, oh, it's only a free sample, and they're going to avoid it, and that's fine. And they're not the readers that you're wanting to target with a free sample, and that's fine. Don't worry about it. In promos, I would offer your free sample alongside your reader magnet, right? So you can have two. Essentially, if you've only been doing promos with one book, which is your reader magnet, you can now effectively have two books in each promo. That doubles the chance that somebody, sees you.
All right. Reddy is a nonfiction author of the book AI Unleashed, and he has some ideas to throw out. Would you give away a key chapter from the book? And would you give away audiobook chapters or a PDF version? And then just to clarify, I'm sure you addressed this, but would you ask for their email address before they can access the content?
Sure. So let's start with like a key chapter for nonfiction. Yes, absolutely. A key chapter as a free sample could be useful. What also can kind of work is like you have to be careful, but you could still write sort of a reader magnet for nonfiction. The way to think of it is nonfiction is generally trying to solve a problem, and so your reader magnet should state the problem and set up that there's a possible solution. Maybe giving like a little tidbit about it, right? But you can still write an actual sort of reader magnet that will still provide something useful, but not the whole picture, right? Like, here's 3 things you can do about X, Y, and Z. If you want to know like 7 through 10, those are in this book, right? Something like that. So that sort of thing. I would collect emails on something like that. If you're giving away a key chapter or just a sample, I would not collect emails on that generally. And then, yeah, you have things like audio and like a PDF. I know it's for some nonfiction, like a worksheet or a companion to the main thing, whatever it happens to be. That would be another idea as well. So you can apply all these things to that. It still would work. You just got to think outside the box a little bit. But yes, like audio could be great if you wanted to make like that as kind of like almost like a bonus chapter. Is kind of the way that I would think of that, right? Like if there's an audio clip that you have for that nonfiction book, right? That's what I'd use that for, something like that. But yeah, all those would still apply. Yes, Kelly, I see your message. You are unmuted. All right, what do we got next? Oh, wait, did I thought I did. Or who? Oh, I guess Emma,
No,
do you have another one?
you
Oh, here we
did.
go.
That was my bad. I accidentally hit mute again when I thought you were unmuting me. So,
Okay.
okay. So
Okay.
Anna is asking, how far in advance of first book release should you release the short prequel? We're moving on to prequels.
Sorry, what was it? Can you repeat that again?
So how far in advance of the first book, like if you're doing a prequel uh for a series, how far in advance
Oh,
should you release that prequel so that you could start building that list?
sure. So like in an ideal world, we would release that like even like we could even release that like 6 months in advance, right? In an ideal world, that would be potentially where we could do that. The more lead time you have, in some ways, the better, because you have more time to build up to all of that. so yeah, something like that is ideal, like 6 months, somewhere in there. You don't want it to be too long, because you want there to be like some end in sight, that sort of thing. But then you can tease the release of the next book ahead of time, or the first book ahead of time. You have plenty of time to do that. And if this is your first rodeo, it also gives you plenty of time to like just get in the habit of doing that and get used to managing a newsletter and that sort of thing. So there's that to be considered as well. So yeah, I would say ideally it's like 6 months, somewhere in there. But you can do it in less than that too. And the thing to keep in mind is that really like the time frame ahead of time is only a concern when you're talking about like your launch and getting the series launched. After that, it's just normal maintenance. It's kind of just a routine thing. People are going to continue joining your list. So, the more time you have, the better generally, especially if you're trying to do it on a budget. Right. But yeah, you can still do it in a shorter window of time. You just got to understand that that's probably going to affect your results a little bit, of how that will impact your launch. But again, think long term. I would rather you think long term. All right, Emma, what do we got?
I am going to skip a few questions and then we'll double back if we have time, because during Magnet 4, there was a major point of confusion.
Okay,
How
yeah.
quick are they reviewing? Is this
Yeah.
reviews they're posting on retailers, or is this just something you're using to
Right.
qualify? Can you
No, so right. So the magnet I'm suggesting would not be available on retailers. You would not be having that book on Amazon, say, for example, or anywhere else. It probably would wind up on Goodreads inevitably, right? Which is not a retailer. And you could even host like reviews on your own website, for example. Or you don't even necessarily have to like do that, though. You can just have them posted on Goodreads if they want to, and just see. The whole point is to see who follows through, who's going to follow through on writing the review. That's what you want to get at the end of it is, okay, this person followed through and they wrote the review for this book. That's somebody that I need to keep on my review team, right? And they maybe if they really enjoyed it too, that's a bonus as well, right? And so then you're putting people at the front of that funnel, right, to go through your series and review it. So you're getting more reviews on all the books in your series, and ultimately those are the people who are going to get your arcs when a new book is coming out, right? So your feedback magnet, or review magnet, if you want to call it that, I would not have it available on retailers because it just gives you more flexibility. And the only purpose here is to find out who's going to follow through. Now you can also do this, and I didn't mention this explicitly, but you could also use this to find beta readers, for example. Right. So you could put out a feedback magnet of that type where you're asking for feedback like, hey, here's this free book. I want to get your thoughts on it and see who gives you notes. It's like this. When I was shopping around for literary editors, which I will name drop, Harry DeWolf, check him out. Great guy. The reason I went with him, I submitted my manuscript to about like a dozen literary editors, and most of them came back, ho hum, okay, that's interesting. When I got Harry's, whatever the treatment of the first few chapters, my mind was blown. And I'm like, okay, that's the guy. Shopping for beta readers should kind of be the same way, right? Give that beta reader magnet out to like 100 people. And see who gives you the really good feedback, the juicy stuff. And those are going to be your beta readers going forward, right? So you could use it in that way as well. The purpose for one of those feedback magnets is explicitly to find out who is going to follow through on giving you feedback, either in the form of reviews or in the form of actual feedback, like a beta reader would, right? And so that's the main purpose of it. It is, you're not selling that book. It is only available this way. They have to like join your review team, or right, apply to join, however you want to phrase it, right? They have to join your review team in order to get that book. That's the only way they can get it. And then the only way that they stay on that team is if they have follow through. And that way you're not also giving away like 100 copies of book one all the time and feeling like you're just giving the book away and cannibalizing your own sales. Early on, obviously, I think that would be important if you're brand new to the game. And yes, you want to release, you've grown your list, you've released your reader magnet, book one is coming out. Yes, you want to really give arcs out for book one, right? You absolutely want to do that. What I'm describing here is how once you've released more than one book, and you still need to get reviews on book one, and you need to get reviews on book two and every book in this series, and you need new arc readers for like book five. How do you get people to the front of that funnel and get them going through? You use a review magnet, feedback magnet, whatever you want to call it. See who follows through, and then those are the people that you give those review copies to going forward. And it's also a way to kind of have some control over your reviews as well. Everybody's going to get negative reviews, right? If you haven't gotten one yet, you will, right? And it will ruin your whole day. But this gives you some more control because like, okay, that person who left a 1-star review, probably not my target audience. No big deal. I'm going to move on. What I like to do is I go find authors that I really admire. I find their books on Amazon and then I go read their 1-star reviews and I feel a lot better. That's what does it for me. Right. So if you're in that funk that just happened to you, or the next time it happens to you, that's what gets me out of it. Is I go I'll go check out Dune, right? Frank Herbert or Isaac Asimov, Kevin J. Anderson, Brandon Sanderson, anybody, even just one of the big names, to go read their 1-star reviews. They're all the same. Everybody gets 1-star reviews. You'll feel
same, Jack.
better.
I do that.
Perspective, like if this dude or gal is getting 1 stars, then it's all right.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so going back to distributing prequels, how do you distribute those prequels to people who are not already on your list? And does the prequel work for a new reader with 0 following?
A new author with 0 following?
I think it means author, yeah, new author.
Yes, it does. You can promote your reader magnet any other way that you would promote. Well, you have the benefit of being able to like give it away, so you can promote it in different ways, but everywhere. So like BookFunnel promos and swaps, free books, promo services will let you do that, right? Giveaway. You can pay them to blast your reader magnet, prequel, whatever it is, your true reader magnet, I guess if we want to be specific here, to their list, like all that. Facebook ads, even. We actually talked about this with Mal Cooper in the episode of the podcast that we recorded yesterday, which oddly enough is going to be uploaded to the YouTube channel later than this video will be. But anyway, we talked about advertising your reader magnet and using the Facebook pixel to maximize the conversion on that. And this is something that you can, even with a small budget, you can start to grow your list from your reader magnet using Facebook ads, even for $1 a day, right? So $30 a month, you can start there, right? If you don't have a huge ad budget, can you afford $30 a month? You can start running an ad to your reader magnet and start, growing a mailing list from there, even if you're starting from scratch, and like, just do all the things, right? It should be everywhere. You want it to be ubiquitous, so that readers can find it all over the place. But of course, they've got to join your mailing list in order to do so. So I would actually recommend running ads towards your reader magnet versus say like a free sample. I wouldn't recommend doing paid Facebook ads to a free sample. But I would for your reader magnet, And the big reason is that if, say, you're running ads and you're pointing them to your book on Amazon, that's all fine and dandy. But when you capture a reader's email address after they download your reader magnet, you can run them through an automation sequence. You keep them on your list forever, right? To then continually market to them. So it will cost you more to get them as a subscriber to your mailing list in terms of cents, right? But the long-term payoff is that you have more time to court them and to get them onboarded and to get them convinced that they need to read your books. We talk about that in more detail in the podcast, so you can check that out as well. That when that gets uploaded to YouTube, I would recommend it.
All right. Rena was asking, and there were, I'm going to do this question because there was a couple of questions the same vein.
Sure.
How do you track clicks in the front and back matter? What program do you recommend?
Sure. So there's like Bitly is something that a lot of people should be aware of. There's also Genius Link. Genius Link is my personal favorite for now. There's some new things on the horizon that I'm looking forward to, but that right now is the one that I use. It lets you just, it actually has a number of really useful tools, but it lets you essentially track those clicks just like you would on Bitly. So you can see I'm using this specific link in this specific place, and I know how many clicks it's gotten in this time frame, right? So you can then go back and see like, okay, yeah, I gave away 100 copies of, you know, of my book for free, and I can track and see how many of the people clicked those links and converted. Now, conversion is harder to prove, actually, but you can at least track clicks. Right? There would be additional layers depending on what you're wanting to track in terms of conversion, but yeah, you would be able to track it very easily that way, is what I would say. So yeah, Bitly or Genius Link. Bitly people are probably familiar with, and there's other services out there too, other link tracking services, that sort of thing, that are useful as well. Was there another part to that question, or was that was that it?
No, that was it.
Okay, cool. All right, Kelly, do you have one for me here?
Yeah, Donna is asking, how does this work if a majority of the sales, I believe this is her asking her own sales, that she wants are for print copy?
Kelly, your audio is kind of going in and out a little bit here.
That is,
So I'm having trouble hearing you.
can you hear me now?
No. Here, we'll come back to you. Emma, do you have another one for me?
Yeah, she was giving you Donna's question. How does all of this work if the majority of sales are for print copies?
Oh, interesting. So, a couple of things. I'd recommend you do. I would still put links to some of your magnets in the front back matter of your print books. It's still viable to put them there. You can put QR codes if you want to be fancy, right? I would still put those links there in your print book. So like things like bonus chapters and things like that. All of that can still go there. It's a little like the question, I think the main question that I would ask is, am I getting conversions from giving away ebook copies of my reader magnet to print copies of my series? In which case, I wouldn't worry too much about it. But if you're having trouble, like it sounds like you're not having trouble with print sales, if the majority of your sales are in print, there are some other things that you can do. So one thing you can do is I would do this with like a prequel. Wouldn't do this with a sample, and I wouldn't do this with the other types of magnets necessarily. But with your prequel, I would have that on Amazon, let's say you're selling on Amazon or any retailer, the print-on-demand retailer, have it up there and sell it at cost. So you make nothing from it, right? It'll be, if it's a short story or a novella, it's going to be pretty cheap. It's going to be probably under or around $4. And people will have to buy it, of course, and it's going to get shipped to them. But you can then potentially sell copies of that or even promote that in other ways too, as kind of like a cheap, easy way for people to kind of buy into your series. As a little different, a little out of the box, but you could also offer like your super fan magnet could in theory even be like like only available in print, and maybe it's a signed copy or something like that. Like they got to jump through the hoops to get it. So hopefully that's addressing the question. If not, feel free to clarify. But the big thing would be, are you seeing conversion from your ebook reader magnet or sample to print? And you should be able to track that with some reasonable, to some degree of certainty, right? Like using Amazon attribution links and things like that. You could even, for example, if you have back matter links that are specifically going to different formats of the book, you can do that as well. So you could have a link that goes to the ebook and one that goes to explicitly the paperback. So you can do that sort of thing if you want to kind of get an idea for maybe where the interest lies among your readers. But if you're already seeing good paperback sales and you are giving away a digital ebook reader magnet, then it's probably safe to say that your conversion is pretty good, or in that respect, if that's your primary marketing strategy, is what I'd say. If you're getting good print sales even without a reader magnet, I don't think a reader magnet is gonna hurt. Yeah, and actually Emma brings up a good point here, is like a printable reader magnet. All right, like a mini coloring book or something like that, because it's still physical. Yeah.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I changed out my headphones, so hopefully that works. Okay, so Courtney is asking, what if you want your current readers to receive a bonus chapter 2, how to offer that to existing readers? We don't want them sharing the link with people who haven't bought the book, so how do we do that?
Sure. So if you wanted to do that, you can. You can restrict the book on BookFunnel. This requires that you have at least the mid-list author plan. So this isn't available on the first-time author plan. Essentially restricting the book means that readers will not have access to the book files. They won't be able to download them or email them to themselves. They can only read the book in the BookFunnel app or in the BookFunnel Cloud Reader. And so that restricts their access to it. So there's no way for them to share it. Generally with reader magnets, what I tell authors is not to worry about readers sharing a book. If they download the file and they email it to a friend, I personally would not worry about that. In fact, in some cases, you might even want to encourage it, right? Because, hey, it's kind of free marketing, right? Maybe that person, who gets it doesn't sign up for your list right away, but who knows, maybe they do, or maybe they buy the whole series and they just don't want to be on your email list, right? Totally fine. I wouldn't generally worry about it, but with something like that where you're wanting to make it exclusive, then yes, restricting the book is your best bet, so that it's only available in the Cloud Reader or in the BookFunnel app is what I would say. I did see a question here. Book of Venus Publishing. I arrived late. Deepest apologies. Can you list the 5 reader magnets again? Yes, I can. The recording will be up on YouTube, but the 5 were a free sample, a prequel, or really it's kind of like the typical reader magnet is what most people think of a reader magnet. A bonus chapter, or really bonus chapters, or some bonus content at the end of each book. A feedback magnet, which is designed to help you identify who are the good readers to keep on your review team, or who are going to be good beta readers. And then a super fan magnet helps you identify who your super fans are. Those were the 5. All right. I think Emma.
Am I up? Oh, okay. Let me see.
If we have more, You have
We
more.
did.
I mean,
Are we at Tiffany? Tiffany is
we're at
asking.
Ardell.
Did I skip somebody?
Yeah.
Oh shoot. Okay. Okay. Ardell. Okay. Ardell is asking, I already have a UBL everywhere. Should I have two? And will I have to manually add several retailer links? I'm publishing every 2 to 3 years. Can magnets be about something other than the books already published? And Tiffany's question is kind of related to this. Is it better to write something directly related to something you're selling, or is an unrelated short story acceptable?
okay, let's address that one first, and then we'll come back to the UBL question. So I'll have you remind me of that after I answer this. So it is ideal that the magnet is directly related to the content that you are trying to sell, the paid content. It is ideal that those two things are related. So really to just, if they read the reader magnet, that should compel them to then purchase the book generally. It obviously, with a bonus chapter, it's a little different. It's like bonus content. Generally, that is related, but I suppose that's a case where it wouldn't necessarily need to be related. It should be connected to it in some way. Now, that can be hard in some cases, depending on what you're writing, what genre you're in. Sometimes I know some authors like, well, at Author Nation, I talked to a number of authors. By the way, anybody who's there at Author Nation, say hi in the Zoom chat. I forgot to say that at the beginning. I talked to a lot of authors though, and one of the consistent themes was I wrote like this book, and it's a standalone, and it's in this genre. It's like urban fantasy, and then I wrote this dark mafia romance over here, and what do I do next? And it's like those two things are great, but like we kind of gotta pick a lane, and we gotta maybe commit to one thing for a while, and then we can come back and revisit that, or try to write things that are interconnected. So is there some way you can connect your mafia romance to your urban fantasy? I don't know, maybe. Whatever you guys are creative, you can think about it. But yes, ideally it's related, because you're creating sort of a feedback loop is what you're creating. So the magnet needs to be directly related to the book, because you want them to buy the book. If it's unrelated, like at the very least, it's something you wrote. So if you write, say, like literary fiction, right? Contemporary literary fiction, a genre where standalones are a little more common, maybe you have some sort of theme that you can tie them together with, because otherwise you're relying them on just being a fan of you. And that's not always easy when you're getting started out. So having a series is ideal, and then having that magnet be tied to the series is ideal, so it's all related. But it can be, I understand it can be tricky, but yes, it probably means you need to write something new. Like something that's a little different can work in the interim, but plan on writing something to replace it in the near future.
The other part of that question was
Yes.
talking about UBLs and
Right.
how many you should have, where they should be.
So really, for the most part, unless you have different links on them, there's no real need to have multiple ones for the most part. Like you can have one per book. It's usually fine. There may be some reasons in the near future for you to have more than one, for like some tracking purposes, but for the most part, one is going to be okay, right? One universal book link. If you duplicate one, if you do want more than one and you duplicate it, anything that you did on that original UBL will carry over. If you're creating one for a new book, though, yes, you will need to track down the links for that book and get them added there. You can also use Books to Read, because I know Books to Read, I believe they have like a feature that can like find those books, and then you can or find the links to where your book is available if it's wide, for example. And then you can use your books to read link to essentially import those links to your BookFunnel universal book link as well. So there's a way to do that. That can potentially save you some time.
Okay.
I do see
think
a
that's
question here. There was a question about, I guess, the topic of piracy came up. I'm not sure what the original thread was here. But yes, most piracy, most ebook piracy anyway, on the internet is from Kindle Unlimited. If your book is uploaded to Amazon and it's in Kindle Unlimited, it will almost inevitably be scraped by bots. That they scrape Kindle Unlimited for whenever a new book is uploaded, and then they take that book and they will sell it on pirate sites. However, the important thing to understand here, because that obviously can be infuriating. Like if your book has been pirated, there are some potential issues for the author and that sort of thing, and I don't want to dismiss any of that. But generally speaking, not something to worry about too much. It's kind of hard to prevent. But what those pirates are actually trying to do is not sell your book. They are trying to create a fake bookstore where they can collect people's personal information and then steal their identity. Right? That's what they're doing with all those files that they scrape. And so Kindle Unlimited is just the easiest way for them to do it. Is how it works. That's the nature of the internet, folks. Even with Kindle Unlimited, right? If I'm reading in Kindle Unlimited on my phone or a tablet or a Kindle Fire even, there's still a file that has to be downloaded to my device. That is still able to be detected in that device. It can be scraped out of there. So there's no way really, right, to prevent that sort of piracy ultimately from happening. Obviously not something that, I don't want you to lose any sleep about it. I know it can be frustrating, and there are some authors that have been impacted by piracy in real ways, but generally speaking, yeah, not something to worry about too much. Keep an eye out for it, obviously, and file copyright claims where you need to, and do your due diligence. But generally speaking, it's just kind of the nature of the beast. So that is going to be all for today, folks. I want to thank you all for joining us. It was a good time. This is one of my favorite topics. I hope this was useful for you guys. I hope you got something out of it and it was beneficial for you. Gave you some stuff to think about. And I hope to see you guys all next week in our upcoming webinar, and then in the future as well. So you guys have a great rest of your day. Again, thank you for joining us, and we will see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. Check out these other videos from BookFunnel, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.